Please be seated. Back on the record, this is the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present as well. And we continue to be outside the presence of the jury. The camera is not turned on yet, is it?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I wanted to make a further record with respect to the last bench conference we had. This came up yesterday as well. I went back and looked at Order P-109, and I stand by Order P-109. What I understand the case law to be is that the rules of evidence cannot be mechanistically applied when to do so would violate a constitutional right or would lead to a due process violation. It doesn't stand for the proposition that the rules of evidence don't apply to mitigation. Those are two very different things. And what I infer from the case law and what I understand from the case law is you have to have unique circumstances or extraordinary circumstances in order for Green and some of the other holdings to apply. Green, by the way, is Green versus Georgia, 442 U.S. 95, 99 Supreme Court 2150, 60 Lawyers Edition 2nd 738. That's a 1979 case from the United States Supreme Court. I discussed Green versus Georgia at length in Order P-109. I also discussed Oregon versus Guzek, G-U-Z-E-K, 546 U.S. 517, 126 Supreme Court 1226, 163 Lawyers Edition 2nd 1112. That's a Supreme Court case, United States Supreme Court case from 2006. And then there's other authority that is discussed as well in Order P-109. So I understand the circumstances when either the United States Supreme Court or other federal courts have said, look, in this circumstance, it was improper for the court to exclude mitigation evidence that was significant to the defense based on the rules of evidence, a mechanistic application of the rules of evidence. That doesn't mean that the rules of evidence go out the window when it comes to mitigation evidence. So in any event, with respect to Mr. Zoldi, he ended up testifying to the hearsay that the prosecution was objecting to. So, and then yesterday I allowed certain hearsay evidence over the people's objection as well in terms of the progress reports. And yesterday I had not gone back and read Paxton versus Ward again when the case was cited. I did not have it in front of me, and I did not remember that I had read it before. I was wrong about having cited it in P-109. I did not cite it in P-109. I don't think that the defense cited it in motion P-109 or in the response to motion P-109. But I do remember that I discussed it at length during I think it was during individual voir dire. It's whenever the issue was brought up with respect to two witnesses from California not being able or not being available for trial, including someone who was a medical student, I believe, or doing a residency and about to become a doctor, being very busy. So whenever that issue was brought up, and I thought it was during individual voir dire, I remember that I made an extensive record about Paxton. So, and Ms. Brady, I absolutely appreciate the fact that you need to cite it and continue to cite it. That's not a problem. I just wanted to supplement the record because I went back and reread Order P-109 during the break. Okay.
Your Honor, can I put the cite to Paxton on the record?
Yes, I have it here with me. It's a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals case. It's 199 F. 3rd, 1197, That's a 10th Circuit case from 1999. So, and the circumstances in Paxton, by the way, were unique as well. And as I indicated during the bench conference, if I had been a judge reviewing the trial court's decision in Paxton, I would have had the same reaction that the 10th Circuit had, and I would have come out the same way the 10th Circuit did. But again, I think you have to have a certain type of situation where a mechanistic application of the rules of evidence results in a constitutional violation or a violation of the defendant's constitutional rights or due process rights. And it doesn't mean that any time there is a hearsay objection or any kind of objection under the rules of evidence that the court says, well, overrule based on Paxton versus Ward. I don't read Paxton to be that broad. And certainly Paxton doesn't take priority over the United States Supreme Court precedent. And I think and I know, in fact, Guzik is a case that's much more recent, well, not much more, but more recent than Paxton. And Oregon versus Guzik discussed at length the ruling Green versus Georgia. So I think I understand what the Supreme Court is saying about this particular issue. And I don't think that Paxton meant to in any way overrule that. I think Paxton was applying the precedent from the United States Supreme Court to the situation it had before it. Ms. Brady, are you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Should we turn the camera on so you can do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ms. Brady, you may call your next witness.
We call Martin Barrett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Martin Thomas Barrett, Martin Thomas Barrett.
Ms. Brady, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Thank
a
you.
little
Good.
rushed. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Can you please tell us if you know the Bob and Arlene Holmes family?
Yes, I sure do.
And how do you know them?
We were neighbors with the Holmes family when we lived in the Oak Hills neighborhood in the Castroville, Monterey Bay area.
And is that in California?
Yes, in California.
And can you just tell us approximately where in the state of California you're talking about?
Well, Castroville is about 20 minutes north of Monterey, city of Monterey, and the neighborhood is about 3 miles east of Castroville.
So the neighborhood is called Oak Hills?
Yes, it is.
And the town was which?
Well, we were actually considered rural Salinas.
Salinas, California?
Yes.
Okay, and that's by Monterey?
Yes, it's by Monterey.
All right. Can you describe for us what that area is like, the Salinas area?
Well, our neighborhood was surrounded by strawberry fields, both on the south and north sides of it. And then the school that our kids attended together with Jimmy was about 3 miles away in a very small rural town.
All right. Is it also near Castroville?
Yes, the school is actually in Castroville where all of our kids attended.
Okay, and is that also somewhat rural?
Yes, very rural. It's considered the artichoke capital of the world.
All right. If I can approach, I'll show you D-TR-253.
You may.
And do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission of D-TR-253.
Any objection, Mr. Edson?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, D-TR-253 is admitted.
Sir, can you tell us what that is a picture of?
It's the welcome sign into the town of Castroville. And they had a very small motel, they had a few restaurants, a tiny grocery store, and then the elementary school where the kids from the town of Castroville and the surrounding rural area attended.
What was the name of the elementary school?
It was Castroville Elementary.
All right. And behind that welcome sign, can you also see sort of the rural area of Castroville?
Yes, it looks like some of the artichoke fields back behind there.
All right. Your Honor, I'll ask to publish that later to the jury.
Okay.
All right, sir. I think you said that you have two sons.
Yes, we have two sons, Ryan and Joseph.
And how old are they in relation to James Holmes?
Ryan is a year older, and Joseph is a year younger.
All right. And give us a little bit of history, how you met the Holmes family and what your impressions were of them.
Well, they live 4 houses down from us on the street, Trefoil.
That's the name of the street?
That's the name of the street.
Okay.
We loved it that they had a young son and a young daughter because the son was right in the group of age with the group of boys that our sons were already playing with. It was really neat because there was 14 to 15 young boys in the ages between Joseph and Jim and Ryan that they all played together or they were able to get together, and so we were just excited, one more kid in the neighborhood that they could all get along with.
And how old would these boys have been when you first met the Holmes family?
My recollection, they were between 9 and 11 years of age.
Okay. All right, and explain what the neighborhood was like, what the neighbors were like, what the atmosphere was on Trefoil Street.
Well, it was a residential style neighborhood, but they were bigger lots because we were outside of the city boundaries, so we had a little bit more square footage to our lots. There was lots of greenbelt spaces. The kids would be able to go out into the greenbelts and wander around in the little creek that ran through it. There were trees that they would climb. There was a neighborhood swimming pool that was part of our homeowners association that all the kids and families could go up to swim in the summertime. But it was a real community neighborhood. We really were able to bond quite closely with all the neighbors that we had. And so we kind of lived our lives through our kids at that time, as most people do when their children are growing up. And it's nice that, it was really nice for us because in raising kids, you want to know who they're playing with and whether you want to steer them away from them or if you want to, foster that relationship to continue. And all the kids in that group, we felt very comfortable with our boys playing with.
And one of those boys was James Holmes?
Yes, it was James, which we used to refer to as Jimmy.
Jimmy. And what were your observations, what were your impressions of who you knew as Jimmy Holmes back then?
Well, he was a gentleman. He was sweet. He never was involved in any altercations. The kids would have pickup football games or street hockey in front of our houses, and occasionally there'd be a sore feeling or two, and it might end up in a little tussle. But Jimmy was never involved in any of those. He was never like an instigator to try to push anyone forward to get involved in something negative like that. He would always stand back and just observe and, hope it didn't. I think he was hoping it didn't grow to any bigger than what it was.
All right. Did you ever see him be mean or disrespectful to anyone?
Never at all. Actually, my wife and I always used to compliment him after we'd have family gatherings, or sometimes he'd bring his little sister Chrissy over, and she would be shy. She was super shy around all the boys, and so she would scratch and paw at Jimmy to say, let's go home, get me out of here. These boys are looking at me funny, and he would just say, calm down, Chrissy, it's okay. He just had a nice, mellow mannerism to him.
Did you ever see him be mean to his sister Chrissy?
Not once.
Okay.
Not once.
How was he with the adults in the neighborhood?
I think he was just like most of the other boys. If the kids were infringing on someone's front lawn or something, or driveway, skating, and they didn't want them there, then, they all, he along with the others would, respect the wishes of the neighbors, and I never saw any confrontations with any neighbors whatsoever.
All right. In that group of how many boys did you say all played together?
It was about 14 to 15 between that age group.
At that age group, did it appear to you that Jimmy, who is James Holmes, did it appear to you that James Holmes fit in with the group or was outside the group?
I think he fit very much into it. There was one boy, Chris, who lived the house next to Jimmy, well, actually the house in the street across from Jimmy. Chris Chun that he used to visit with, and that seemed to be more of his regular pal, I guess, because they were in the same grade. And you'd see those two, if they were by themselves, they were always playing basketball in the cul-de-sac by Jimmy's house, or dribbling down the street and wanting to go do a pickup, trying to organize a pickup game so that they could play.
All right.
So he was, not extremely outgoing, but he wasn't closed in or anything like that, or not an introvert at that time.
Did he seem happy to you?
Oh, extremely happy. I think all those boys were having a great childhood, and it seemed like our house kind of became, I think my wife can explain that further, just like a gathering place for all the kids, because she didn't work after school, and some of the parents that worked, it seemed like the kids would just kind of congregate over at our house. They'd have snacks, they'd do their homework, and then they just organize their play day from there, or if they went home, they'd go do their homework and then come over to our house, and that's where kind of a general gathering place was.
And never any trouble with James Holmes at your house?
No.
And were they the kind of kids that would do their homework and did well in school?
Yes, the majority of them were. I mean, there were a couple that school wasn't so exciting for them.
What about James Holmes?
Well, he never came down there to do his homework, but my wife talking with Arlene, I think they always talked about how he was doing well in school as our kids were.
Okay. Did the boys ever do things in the neighborhood like make things or organize activities for the other kids to come play at?
Yeah, well, they would gather either at our house or out in the street, or they'd go over to every Halloween. The Holmes would put together a Halloween party that they'd coordinate, and Jimmy and Chrissy would be the leaders on that and telling the kids what to do, and they had a real kick doing that stuff.
All right. Did the kids, including James Holmes, participate in sports?
Oh yes, Jimmy was very active. Like I said, he loved basketball. He would put together those basketball games. My son Joe, we used to refer to as JoJo at the time. They were on a traveling track team for Monterey County. Actually, Arlene was the one that informed us that there was a track team that was starting up that met at the high school 3 or 4 days after school. And so we got our son into running with Jimmy. And so they used to go to a number of track meets in Northern California over a course from like April till August, late July or something. So they did that for about a year and a half together until the Holmes had to move. But Jimmy was a great runner. He didn't like the long distance stuff, but he liked the middle distance stuff, and the coaches were always encouraged and very proud of his stamina and the effort that he put into doing his best to win a race.
Did he seem to fit in with the track team at that time?
Yes, he did. There weren't too many members of it at that time because it was just starting up. It was actually the county assessor from the city, or from Salinas County or Monterey County. They was based in Salinas, and then a friend of his that ran like a door shop that formed the team together, and so they had a group of kids that focused on sprints and a group of kids that focused on middle and long distance. And Jimmy and my son seemed to get along fine with all the kids because there were kids from throughout. The majority of them were from Salinas proper and not actually from the Castroville area. They were actually the only two from Castroville. But the team actually met at the high school in Castroville, North Monterey County High School.
And were you involved with track also as far as going to the meets and taking the kids? And
Yes. I would sometimes, if the Holmes couldn't take them to a meet, then Jimmy would ride with us because the meets were sometimes either in San Jose or Sacramento or even Petaluma one time. We went as far as there for a meet. And so we had lots of hours together in the car. Jimmy wasn't always the most talkative. We always had to, I'm a very talkative person, so I probably hounded him a little more than he wanted to with, stirring up some questions and to get some conversation going.
Your Honor, if I can approach with D-TR-254.
Yes.
Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, I do. I think this was their very first track meet. That was at Hartnell College in Salinas.
Your Honor, I would, move for the admission of D-TR-254.
Is there any objection, Mr. Edson?
No objection.
Without objection, D-TR-254 is admitted.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. What else?
And so in the left of the picture is my son, Jojo, Coach Tim, who worked with the distance runners, and then Jimmy. And it looks like they had both won medals that day for their first track meet, so they were very impressed with them. They were, I think, a few of the only kids on the team at that time that actually earned a medal on that day.
Would you do me a favor? I put a pen up there. Would you mind just circling the face of Jimmy Holmes so that the jury will know which one was him?
Okay, good.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Your Honor, I'll ask to publish that to the jury at a later time.
Okay.
Sir, as neighbors to the Holmes family, were you able to observe Bob and Arlene Holmes as they parented James Holmes and Chris Holmes?
Yes, well, actually, every day, the majority of those kids were at our bus stop, which was about 3 houses down from us and across the street from the Holmes' house. And so Arlene would usually walk over there, and my wife would always walk over there and monitor the kids in the morning. And occasionally I had to do that if she was sick or had to go do something different. So we had lots of good conversations there at the bus stop. And then we would get together as neighbors, as a neighborhood, and have barbecues and Christmas parties and celebrate birthday celebrations as well.
Approximately how many years did you know the Holmes family? How many years did you live right there next to them?
It was I'm thinking a 3.5 to 4 year period.
All right. And in that time, how would you describe Bob and Arlene as parents?
I think they were wonderful parents. I think they were very concerned with the development of their children academically. I think they were concerned about who they played with, just like all of the other parents in the neighborhood were. I think they were super parents.
Did there come a time when the Holmeses moved away from Trefoil Street?
Yes, they actually moved in May of 2000, I think it was. And then we actually moved ourselves from that neighborhood to Reno in August of that year.
Okay.
So we had a kind of a separation anxiety from the neighborhood as well as separation from the Holmes family. And so my wife was very good with trying to keep track of how all the kids were doing, how all the parents were doing. And so they became quite good pen pals. And
So they stayed in touch even after the move?
yes, they sure did.
Right. Back then, when you lived on that street, did you consider the Holmes family, including James Holmes, your friends?
Oh, certainly. We
And
certainly did.
do you still consider that family, including James Holmes, your friends?
Yes, we do. Very dear friends.
Do you support the family?
Yes, we do.
Do you support James Holmes,
Yes, we certainly do.
even now?
Yes.
If I can have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes?
That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Edson, do you have any cross-examination for Mr. Barrett?
Very briefly, if I may, Judge.
Go ahead.
Mr. Barrett, isn't it true that you had not seen the Holmes family, particularly James Holmes, after they moved in 2000, May of 2000? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Judge. No further questions.
Do you have any redirect, Ms. Brady?
I do not.
May Mr. Barrett be released from his subpoena?
Absolutely.
Any objection?
Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you.
You're welcome.
Call your next witness, please, Ms. Brady.
We call Kathy Barrett.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Catherine Lynn Barrett, Katherine Lynnbarrett.
Ms. Brady, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please tell us if you know the Bob and Arlene Holmes family?
Yes, I do.
How do you know them?
They were neighbors of ours when we lived in Oak Hills,
Okay. Where is Oak Hills located?
California.
Near Salinas or
Yes, between
Castroville?
Salinas and Castroville.
All right. And what kind of area is that?
It's mostly agricultural, small community.
All right. What street did you live on?
We lived on Trefoil
How did you meet the Holmes family?
through our kids.
And how many kids do you have?
I have two sons,
All right. And what are their first names?
Ryan and JoJo.
All right. How was it that you came to meet Mr. and Mrs. Holmes and their family?
I just think through the neighborhood. They moved in after we did, and the kids started playing, and so we met that way.
How old were your boys at the time you lived on the same street as the Holmes family?
Our oldest was probably 7 or 8, and our youngest was around 5 or 6.
So how old do you think James Holmes was at that time?
He was probably, I'm guessing, 7.
Right? So elementary school age? Okay. Can you tell us about the neighborhood? What do you remember about the neighborhood and the people who lived in that neighborhood?
It was a really wonderful neighborhood. The kids all, played together. It was just a neighborhood right off of a highway, so it was just the neighborhood. So we didn't really have to worry about a lot of things. There wasn't a lot of traffic and stuff. The kids went freely from house to house and played in the green belts behind the houses. It was a nice neighborhood.
How many kids were there how many played together?
There were about 15 boys all in that age range that played together.
And what sort of things would they do together?
They made forts and did Legos, played video games, played sports in the front yards, did bottle rockets. I mean, they all played together, and they, played pretty well together.
Right. Do you remember James Holmes playing with that group of boys?
Oh, yes.
And what did you observe about him? How did he get along with the kids? How did he interact with the other kids?
He did really well with the kids. He was shy around adults, but with the kids, he was just part of the group and played well. He was always polite. I remember him saying please and thank you, and I think he did really well.
Did he seem happy to you?
Yes.
Did you ever see him laugh or smile?
Yes.
Was that a seldom thing or something you would see a lot?
No, I think I think he did it a lot. I think the kids all played together, and I remember that the kids argued or whatever. To me, he was the least confrontational of the boys.
How would you say he handled confrontation with the other boys?
I would think that he would some of the boys would be arguing about what to play or how to do something. He would kind of just stand back. I think once in a while he would, tell them what he thought, but he didn't get into the arguments.
Right. Did you ever see him be mean to anyone?
Never.
Did you ever see him act disrespectfully or rude to anyone?
Never.
Your Honor, if I can approach with D-TR-255 through 259.
Yes.
Your Honor, I will have no objection to these exhibits.
All right. Okay, Ms. Brady's indicating that she's moving the admission of these exhibits without objection. They are admitted. That's D-TR-255 through 259 inclusive.
Ma'am, if you can tell us, the first picture, I think it's 255.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you see in that picture?
This is a picture of Jimmy and his sister Chrissy, and then 2 other, they were brothers that lived in the neighborhood. I'm not sure whose backyard this is, but Chrissy is hanging on to Jimmy, and he's kind of smiling, and that's kind of how I remember Jimmy.
I've put a pen right there next to you. If you wouldn't mind, will you just circle Jimmy's face so that the jury will know for sure which one was him? And what do you recall about how James Holmes interacted with his sister Chris?
Well, my biggest memory of Jimmy and Chrissy, the neighborhood, several families went to a water park in San Jose, and we took our kids. And most of the boys wanted to go on a bigger water slide that Chrissy wasn't old enough to go on, and she was kind of crying. And I remember Jimmy saying, "It's okay, Chrissy, I'm going to stay here with you and play with you." And he had his arm around her, and I just remember that was really sweet, and he stayed back with her while the other boys went.
Was he always nice to his sister?
Yes,
Did you ever see him be mean to her?
never.
The next picture, 256, can you tell us what's in that one?
This is a picture of the kids waiting for the school bus in the morning. It looks like it might have been around Halloween because some of the kids are in costume.
Right, and if you recognize James Holmes in that picture, will you circle him? And tell us about the bus stop, how that worked.
There were several bus stops along this street, so these are the kids that were closest to this bus stop. Usually one of the parents would come and wait with the kids.
Do you recognize all the boys in that picture?
Yes.
And are those part of the 15 approximately that you said all played together?
Yeah, the two, or there's a little girl, the little girl at the end, she didn't really, she didn't play much with the kids, so.
But the boys all played
Boys
together?
were all, yes.
Okay. How about the next picture, 257?
This is a Christmas party a neighborhood Christmas party we had at our house. And I think the kids were just opening gifts. They drew names and brought gifts.
Do you see James Holmes in that picture?
Yes.
Would you circle him, please? And 258?
This is before trick-or-treating, Halloween.
And how many kids are in that photograph?
6.
Do you recognize all of them,
Yes.
despite the costumes?
Yes.
And would you please circle James Holmes if he's in that picture? How about 259?
And this is just another picture of them.
And what are they doing?
Right before trick-or-treating.
Right? Do you see James Holmes in there?
Yes.
Will you again circle him? And was it common for all of those boys, even on holidays, to play together and get together?
Yes.
Okay. Were the parents the same way? Did the parents get together as much as the kids did?
Not as much, but we all, like trick-or-treating, one of us all went, sometimes a parent would stay home to hand out candy, but we all went as a group.
Your Honor, if I can approach with D-TR-260?
Yes.
Ma'am, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is?
It's a flyer for the haunted house the kids put on one Halloween.
And where was that held at?
At the Holmes house in the
Right.
garage.
All right. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of 260.
Any objection, Mr. Edson?
Objection.
Without objection, it is admitted.
How many years do you believe that you lived by the Holmes family?
I'm guessing 5 years.
All right. During that 5 years, did you have a chance to see what kind of parents Bob and Arlene Holmes were to their children?
Yes.
How would you describe them as parents?
They were wonderful parents. They were very involved, very loving, very supportive, wanted the best for their kids, had them in, music lessons and sports, and I thought they were great parents.
Okay. Anything unusual about the family, or did they seem like all the other families?
Like all the other families.
All right. Did the Holmeses eventually move away from that street?
Yes, they moved in, I believe, May of 2000, and then we moved around July of 2000.
All right. And after you guys both went your separate ways, did you stay in touch with Arlene Holmes?
We did, mostly through Christmas cards, but an occasional email.
All right. Your Honor, if I can approach with D-TR-261.
Yes.
Do you recognize what's in 261?
Yes.
And what is it?
It was a note from Arlene's Christmas card, the
Right.
letter she included with it.
Is there anything else with that?
Some emails that we had sent each other.
And are these examples of contact that you had with Arlene Holmes even after the family moved?
Yes.
And was it your impression that Arlene Holmes was always very loving, very concerned about James as her son?
Yes.
And is that exemplified sort of in the writings that she did to you?
Yes.
Right. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of 261.
Is there any objection, Mr. Edson?
Object hearsay and relevance.
Would counsel please approach? The objection is sustained.
Ms. Barrett, when you lived in Oak Hills back then, did you consider the Holmes family to be your friends?
Yes,
Did you consider James Holmes to be a friend of yours?
yes,
Do you still consider that family, including James Holmes, as friends?
yes,
And are you here to support them and him?
absolutely.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. Mr. Edson, do you have any cross-examination for Ms. Barrett?
No, Judge, thank you.
May Mrs. Barrett be released from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any objection? All right, thank you. Call your next witness, please, Ms. Hayes.
Judge, we call Joe Barrett.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could I have you raise your right hands that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please be seated? And could you please tell us your full name and please spell your first, middle, and last names?
Joseph Thomas Barrett, JosephThomasBarrett.
Ms. Higgs, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, where are you living currently?
Currently in Las Vegas, Nevada.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney, but I'm currently working as a judicial law clerk.
Okay. Did you recently pass the bar out there?
About a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were a young boy, and you know we've just heard from your parents, when you were a young boy, did you live in a neighborhood called Oak Hills?
I did.
And can you just describe for the jury where that is?
It's in Salinas, California, right next to Castroville and Monterey area.
How old were you when you lived there?
I think I moved there when I was 3, and then I left at the conclusion of 4th grade.
Okay. And how old were you in 4th grade?
I think around 10.
Okay. Do you recall what it was like as a young boy living in that neighborhood?
It was a great neighborhood to grow up. We had a lot of kids that were, around 3 years difference in age, and always out having fun, playing games in the neighborhood with everyone. It's a good place to grow up.
Do you remember one of the boys in that group being James Holmes?
I do.
And do you recognize him sitting over here with us at the council table?
I do.
Little older today, yeah.
Yes.
I would like for you, we've heard from your parents, but sometimes kids are a little different around their friends and their parents. So if you could just let us know what your perspective is, what your description of James was when you were friends with him as a boy.
He was a very nice kid, very fun to be around. He just was always there having fun with everyone else, normal kid. Yeah, he's a good friend.
How often do you think you would hang out with him in the neighborhood? Is this like a daily thing?
It was pretty daily, and then I was also on the track team with him, so we had track practice 3 times a week together, and then we would go on meets all across California together.
Okay. Can you describe him as a teammate?
Yes. He was a hard worker. He's a pretty good runner back then, and he was great to be around, always encouraging. So yeah, he was a good teammate.
Okay. When you guys would all hang out as a group in the neighborhood, was it all just a group of boys?
Mostly.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Was there ever any trouble amongst the kids?
Yeah, they would, there's always the scuffles among boys, especially around that age.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us whether or not James was ever involved in any of those things?
No, he was never like the aggressor, never really got involved. He'd pretty much stay off to the side when those things happened.
Were there other sports and stuff that you kids would play in the neighborhood aside from being on the track team with him?
Yeah, we'd play football, street hockey, baseball, anything there was, we'd play.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you describe him playing those games with other kids?
He's just a normal kid.
Was he like the one trying to steal the ball all the time and have all the attention?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay. What about, was he a poor loser?
No, no. He's pretty quiet about that and good about that.
Okay. And was that true of the whole group of kids for the most part?
No, there's definitely always the ones in the groups who are upset when they lose. So
Okay.
we had those.
So he was different
Yep.
than that. Would you always say he was a good sport?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. Did you have opportunity, do you recall ever hanging out at the Holmes home?
Yeah, so they would put on an annual Halloween party for all the neighborhood kids. So that's my main memory of going over there, and that was always really nice. They put a lot of work into it, and it's kind of like a haunted house sort of thing.
Okay. As a kid, did you have a good time over there?
I did. I had a great time.
Do you recall, and you may not, do you recall at all James Holmes' little sister?
I do,
Okay.
but I don't have like specific memories of her.
Okay, you were mostly hanging out with, and did you know him as James, or what did you call him?
I knew him as Jimmy.
Okay. So you were mostly hanging out with James Holmes as not his sister?
Correct.
Do you recall her ever trying to hang out with the group of of boys?
Not specifically.
Okay. Your more strong memories are of James Holmes?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Mr. Baird, I appreciate your time. Those are all the questions I have for you today.
Do the people have any cross-examination?
No questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, sir, he may.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, we call Patrick Silva.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
My name is Patrick Kenneth Silva. It's Patrick. Silva, last name Silva.
Ms. Higgs?
Thank you. Mr. Silva, I notice that you speak a little quickly and quite softly, so if you could make sure you slow it down a tiny bit and speak right into the microphone so we can make sure we get everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Silva, where do you currently live?
I live in San Jose, California.
And what's your occupation? What do you do for a living?
I'm studying chiropractic at Palmer College of Chiropractic.
Oh,
I'm an intern right now. I'm in my last year.
Speak right into the microphone, if you will, please, and slow down, okay?
I live in San Jose, California, and I am currently studying chiropractic at Palmer College of Chiropractic.
And you said you're doing an internship currently?
I am an intern. I am in my last year of school.
So you're attending classes as well as working, really?
Correct.
Okay. I would like to ask you if you know a person by the name of James Holmes.
I do.
Okay. Do you recognize him here sitting at council table with us?
Yeah, that's Jimmy.
Okay. How do you know him?
We went to, I think, middle school and high school together. I definitely remember him from playing sports. We played rec basketball in Rancho Penasquitos basketball league, and later in high school on the JV soccer team for a couple of years.
You said Rancho Penasquitos. Where is that located?
It's in California, in San Diego.
Okay. San Diego County?
Hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Do you know if you attended the same middle school?
I can't remember. Yeah.
But you do remember playing recreational sports with him during that age?
Correct.
And how old then were you? What's the age of middle school?
Oh, I was 13, 14, 15.
Somewhere in that age range?
Yeah. High school starts at, I think, 14 and 15.
Okay.
So,
So sort of grades 6 through 8 is middle school?
and yes, and 6 through 8, correct.
Okay. If you can tell us specifically with regard to that time period, what if anything, you remember about playing sports with Mr. Holmes?
Well, as a teammate, I remember him well in JV soccer. That's where we spent most of our time together, in the backfield on defense.
Let me ask you this. When you say JV soccer, was that in middle school or was that in high
This
school?
was high school.
Okay. So are your stronger memories of him from high school?
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay. So I remember a very funny, very sweet, quiet kid, and he kind of flew under the radar, didn't cause a lot of trouble at all. That's another reason why in the previous years that we played sports together, I just remember him from the team. We didn't really hang out afterwards, nor did I with really any of the kids. You kind of go, you play your sport, and then you go back to whatever it is, the next sport, I suppose. And I remember him best because from JV soccer, because we're on the backfield together in basketball or in cross country or whatever other sports we did together. It's kind of you're running by each other, but we were on defense together, and so we're sitting there. We had a good offense, and we just spent the better part of 90 minutes in the same location within 10, 20 feet of each other.
So with the basketball, the rec basketball that you played in middle school, did you were there any social activities that the teams did, like after the games, or it was just kind of you show up and you play and then that's that?
It was show up and play. There were very few any sort of parties and stuff afterwards. I do remember him being a really great basketball player,
Okay.
kind of on par with how I felt about myself. I had respect for him in the sports arena, for sure.
Was he a good teammate on the basketball team?
Absolutely, yeah.
How would you describe his demeanor when he played basketball?
Ready to win.
Okay. Was he a good loser if you guys didn't win?
Oh, we didn't win a whole lot. We weren't on the most competitive of teams. I think one year we did win a lot, but it was mostly it's rec league. It's mostly for fun.
Okay.
There were competitive leagues, along with competitive soccer leagues, but I mostly remember him from rec. And again, that's why we were on JV, because we mostly just like to play and not be terribly too good at the sport where we're not having fun.
So when you're talking about JV, you're talking again about the soccer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I remember him from best. I can speak to that better.
Was he a good teammate?
In soccer?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And same as in basketball?
Well, a different sport, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a different attitude you kind of bring to the field. In basketball, it's very fast-paced,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 5v5 on a small court. In soccer, we could, sit down and pick flowers off the field for the most part,
So when
if we weren't dealing with the ball.
Right. If the ball's at the other end of the field and your offense is taking care of it, you had more time in soccer to communicate with him and
Absolutely.
hang out with
Yeah,
him.
There's a lot more interaction, and it's not just throw the ball to each other and you're on opposite sides of a small court. So.
Okay. Tell me, you said this is a JV team, so it wasn't highly competitive.
No.
Did you guys have fun playing?
Absolutely. I thought we did, and I remember him being a really great defender. I started off as midfield because I was faster, and then just because I don't practice ball handling skills, I think, and I preferred defense. And so I was moved to defense, and I remember James being on defense along with a couple other people that were with us, for a couple years, and I had probably known them from other sports as well. So we all got along, and we all had the same goal in mind, to make sure that the person doesn't get by us, and we were very good at that. And we all had each other's backs. We didn't start any fights. We were just very quick to get to the ball. And Jimmy, I remember being very quick, and not afraid of, like let's say there was a bigger forward or someone who, slid tackled and, did some kind of cheesy stuff. Still wasn't afraid of it, Got to the ball, got it out of there, and we went back to, just doing our thing back there.
Okay.
So.
You said that if there was another player coming up that may slide tackle or something like that, are those, for the level of soccer that you were playing, were those inappropriate behaviors on the field?
For those who don't know or understand soccer, slide tackling is where you come in sliding and you use your cleats against the other person's legs to either take the ball away or hurt the other individual, and that's kind of frowned upon.
Is that something that Jimmy would ever initiate?
Well, ever is a strong word. I think every once in a while it's necessary to get to the ball first. Like if you're just a few feet away and you can't get there physically and be there with the ball to handle it, you're going to slide and kick it out. But a lot of forwards are in soccer not they'll use anything they can, any advantage they can, and so as a defender you have to be prepared for that. Okay. And again, I said it's kind of looked down upon, and it can be very frightening for a defender that's not used to it because you get intimidated easily and you kind of just let them by. But that wasn't something that Jimmy did, and that's something that I appreciated because I didn't do that either, nor did any of my other defenders. And if someone was being overly aggressive on the other team, we would be there to back that person up, not to fight, but to handle that person appropriately. Like let's say, for instance, I needed to get to a ball and a defender or one of the forwards got past all of our midfield and we're the only last line. I would go approach the ball. The forward may be better at handling the ball and gets to my right, and Jimmy would be there. We were very cohesive and, like I said, had the same goal in mind. So we worked very well together.
Would you say that he was a good team player on the field?
I would, absolutely.
Okay.
I had nothing bad to say about him on the field, and I didn't give my respects, willy-nilly. He's one of the players that I do remember because of his goals were not his own goals. They were the team's goals, and he was, as you said, a great team player.
Would you say that he was the kid on the field that wanted all the attention or wanted to hog the ball or anything like that?
Hardly. That would be the forwards.
Okay.
To be serious, that I wouldn't have been able to describe him like that at all. Okay. There was no aggression outside of needing to get the ball and get the ball off the field. There was no holding a grudge when somebody did slide tackle you. You just kind of like move on, like that's their own problem. He wasn't reactive. He was proactive, I would say.
Wasn't a showboater?
No, not at all. There was no dancing on the field when he kicked a ball or got, a lot of times because Jimmy and I were both very quick, if we didn't have an opportunity to pass, we would just take the ball up the field by ourselves. And, there's some glory in that, but this wasn't a ball hog sort of thing. This was a team-oriented sort of thing. So.
Okay. What about sort of did you have any social interaction with him through JV soccer or not?
Just on the field.
Just on the field.
Yeah. So at school we didn't run in the same circles, and it wasn't like a clique type of thing. It was mostly just like my best friend ran in a completely different circle than I did just because of the classes that he was taking. He was in band and whatever. But I don't know where Jimmy was. I think he was taking AP courses and I wasn't in those. So we just weren't, really doing anything other than passing each other in the hallways.
Do you recall him ever being mean, outright mean to any of the other players on the team, or?
No, I think you're getting at like bullying, and that would be, that's the opposite of, I think, of the character that I judged. He was more defensive of people being bullied, for instance, on the field, when there would be an overly aggressive player or something. I do remember many instances where he would, step in and be that, front line because he, had the speed or the technique or whatever it is. But if someone else is getting bullied, he wasn't afraid to go over there. He just seemed like a strong individual, as quiet as he was, because you wouldn't even, think that, that would come out of him. He just seemed very shy and timid, and occasionally he'd crack like kind of out of the corner of his mouth joke, and kind of look around to see if everyone got it. It's very intellectual like that.
When he was on the field, would you describe him as kind of present and focused on the game?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you said that, did he have, I understand it's JV, it's not super competitive soccer, but would you say that he was appropriately intense when he was on that field and playing that game with you guys?
Yeah, I think he gave as much as was needed in those circumstances, and really nothing more, nothing less.
Okay.
I wouldn't describe my own actions any different than his, and that's probably why I respected him so much, is because he played a very similar game.
Just gonna have 1 second.
Sure.
Mr. Silva, I don't have any other questions for you. I appreciate you coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Do the people have any cross-examination? Mr. Edson?
Just one or two, if I may, Judge.
Yes?
Mr. Silva, did you keep in contact with the defendant after high school?
I did not.
Did your JV soccer, did that go into the senior year, or was that earlier in your high school career?
I don't recall. I think it was the later 2 years.
Judge, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Is there any redirect?
No, sir.
May Mr. Silva be released from his subpoena?
Yes, he may.
Any objection?
No. Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Can we call Barbara Martin?
Come around this way, please. Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand, please, so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Yes, my full name is Barbara Stopa Martin, spelled BARBARASTOPAMARTIN.
Ms. Higgs, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Martin. Where do you live currently?
I live in San Diego on Sparran Avenue.
How long have you lived there?
29 years.
Goodness. What do you do for a living in San Diego?
I do payroll, accounting, and HR work for the YMCA.
How long have you done that?
I've done that most of my life, but I've been at this current position for 9 months.
Okay. Do you know, was there a time in San Diego that the Bob and Arlene Holmes family lived on your street?
Yes.
And do you remember when it was that they moved there?
My earliest recollection was sometime 2003-4 time frame, I'm guessing.
Okay. Are you not quite sure of the exact year?
Maybe they were there before I met them.
Okay. Who did you meet first in the family?
I met Arlene. We had both found the Penasquitas Lutheran Church, and they offered new member classes. So when we enrolled and were in the same first session, we found out that we lived on the same street.
Did you immediately take a liking to her?
I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, I found out that she was a nurse, and I wanted to be a nurse, and so I loved nurses. And it just was an instant gravitation to, chat with her and sit with her, and we became friendlier as we carpooled and made arrangements to meet and go to the church together. So I felt comfortable and liked her right away.
How long would you say it was after meeting Arlene that you met the rest of her family?
I'd say within the year.
And what kinds of things did you do with the family?
Well, I always needed help at pet sitting at my house and yard work at my house. And they had young school-age children the same age as my daughter, Jim and Chris. Mm-hmm. And so if we needed to go away, I groomed the neighborhood children to watch my pets for me and help me do a little yard work, because it was supposed to be a low-maintenance yard that never really was. So.
Okay. When you say Jim and Chris, are you referring to Jim and Chris Holmes?
Yes, I am.
And do you recognize James Holmes sitting over here at council table
I
with
do.
us? Tell me if you recall, when you first met James Holmes.
I'm thinking I might have gone to their home first and met them at their home, and they had a swimming pool. I might have been in the swimming pool or something with them.
Had dinner maybe?
And had dinner, yes. I can't be sure about that, but I'm sure I went to their home.
Okay. Can you just describe for us a little bit what this neighborhood was like in that early 2000 period?
Well, a lot of the families were two parents working, upper middle class, highly educated people who wanted their children to grow up in the school district that was touted as, the best in San Diego County. Mm-hmm. So we all moved there with the anticipation that we would get them through school in a great place.
Did you think that the school system was a good school system there?
I personally do. Mm-hmm. And I put my daughter through all the way to the end until her interest lied in a position where her equestrian studies weren't approved PE, so I moved her to the district, and we did independent study the last 2 years, okay, so she could count that as her PE.
How old was she in relationship to James Holmes?
I think she's 2 years behind him in school.
So was she with him at Westview High School? Or
They might have had one overlapping year. If he was the first class to graduate out, they had gone through the whole way. She might have been the incoming ninth grader that next year, but I can't be sure of that. I didn't look it up.
In your experience, did you become very good friends with Arlene Holmes?
I did. I consider her extremely close personal friend.
Okay. Can you tell us can you describe for us what you think of her as a parent, as a family member?
Well, I have to tell you, I thought that they would have been, to me, wonderful parents. I couldn't imagine that either Bob or Arlene had ever raised their voices at their children. They're so mild-mannered and soft-spoken. So I figure they had brought their children up in a functional way, in a very loving and compassionate environment.
Is that what you saw when you saw the family together?
Yes, absolutely.
Did they all seem to get along when you saw them together?
Yes.
Did you see much interaction between James Holmes and his sister Chris?
I did.
And how did they were several years apart, 5 years apart, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But for siblings, I don't know that they had exhibited in front of me any sibling rivalry or anything that is normally normal in a family. They were very cordial to each other.
Okay. How would you describe Arlene as a person?
Arlene is a wonderful, caring, and compassionate human being. I have to tell you, when my husband left me in 2005, I'm sorry, but I walked up the street and asked her if she
I'm
had
gonna
a
object
few
to
minutes
all
to
this.
talk.
Hold on, there's an objection. The objection is sustained.
So you would consider her a good and supportive friend?
Yes. I knew I could trust her with the information that I wanted to talk to her about.
Okay. I want to talk to you now about a couple of the experiences that you had with James Holmes. And you talked about needing some kids in the neighborhood to come pet sit for you.
Yes.
Did he help you with that on occasion?
I do believe so. I think with supervision from Arlene, I think she might have brought them down. I had a German Shepherd dog at the time, and not a lot of people are interested in watching your German Shepherd for you, so it was very brave of them to come down and offer to help. So yes, twice a day she had to be fed and taken out for breaks, so they had to come quite a few trips and then put her in at night.
Did you trust
Yes.
James to do that for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about, you also said you put some of the kids in the neighborhood to work in your yard.
Yes.
Was James Holmes one of those kids?
Yes, he was.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I can. I know that he had an uncle that was an arborist, and I thought it would be great if he helped me do a little landscaping patch in the front of my yard where I had a vision for some flowers and some trees.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked hard together. I think I taught him a few things about how to do the work that I was going to do. We put a border around the one section and a drip line through, and the soil, I brought in the soil, and we prepped it and made it ready, and then hauled those palm trees in and positioned them, and then we planted the flowers at the bottom that I wanted. And
Do you recall about how old he was when he came and helped you with your yard?
I know that was 2004, so I think he was 17.
Okay.
And yes.
Do you have something else to add about that?
Well, I wanted to tell you that he was a good worker and took instructions from me, and I didn't want him to come home sunburned, so I said, please wear your sunscreen and bring your hat, and I've got gloves for you. And every day he came to work, ready to work with what I had asked him to do.
How would you describe his demeanor with you? Was he respectful?
Absolutely respectful.
Polite?
Polite. We got lunch and breaks and drinks to stay hydrated, and he was always very nice.
Would you say he was super talkative with you?
No, and I was not his friend personally. His mother and I were friends, so I didn't really expect him to be chatty with me. We had a job to do. We were workmates, so that's what we did.
Okay. When you, in all of your experience with James Holmes and with the Holmes family, did you ever see that he was causing any problems, getting in trouble?
No, he wasn't that kind of a student or child.
Okay. Did you think that he was the kind of person that wanted attention?
No.
Okay. Do you think he was kind of the opposite?
I think he was perfectly happy doing whatever his pastimes were. I understood he liked the computer and video games and things he occupied himself with that normal teenagers his age did.
Okay. Was he, in your experience, anything other than a good kid, a good boy?
I would have to say absolutely nothing but pretty much a model child. He didn't give them any trouble at all.
Are you still close with the Holmes family?
Yes.
Do you consider this family to be friends of yours?
Absolutely.
Do you consider James to be a friend of yours?
Absolutely.
Is it important to you to support them as a family?
Yes.
and is part of the reason why you're here to support James Holmes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. The prosecution may, I don't know.
Do you have any cross-examination, Mr. Edson?
I have no questions for this witness.
All right. May this witness be released from our subpoena?
You may, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gabriel Menchaca.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated. Tell us your full name for the record, please, and spell your first, middle, and last names.
It's Gabriel Menchaca. It's Gabriel Menchaca.
Ms. Hayes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Menchaca. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good.
I understand you live in the greater LA area, is that right?
Yes.
What do you do for a living out there?
I work at an aerospace company as a inventory cycle counter.
Okay. Was there a time several years back that you were a camp counselor at a camp called Camp Max Strauss?
Yes.
Okay. What years would that have been for you?
I did 2008 and 2009.
Were those the only two times that the 2 years that you worked there?
Yes.
Was that a summer job?
Yeah, it was a summer job.
Okay. So before you got your position that you're doing now?
Yeah, this years ago before.
Was there another camp counselor at the camp with you by the name of James Holmes?
Yes.
Do you remember which year it was?
I think it was 2008.
Okay. And do you recognize him sitting over here at council table with us?
Yes.
That's the James Holmes that was with you at camp?
Yes.
All right. I want to have you, that first year that you were at Camp Max Strauss, what was your position?
I was a counselor.
Okay. How, I want to kind of explain a little bit about how that position works and how this camp works. So tell me what age children were there at the camp?
I believe they were from 6 or 7 to 12 years old. That was a max, 12 years old.
Were they broken up by age into different cabins?
Yes.
And how long would a group of kids be at the camp with you?
There was, it was about from Sunday, we picked them up on Sunday to Thursday, and out of the whole summer there was two sessions that were actually 2 weeks, nonstop for 2 weeks.
So you had a number of sessions that were about 1 week and then a couple that were two full
Yes,
weeks?
I believe it was 5 sessions that were 1 week, and there was 2 sessions that were 2 weeks.
When, where would these kids come from that would come to your camp?
They were from all around the area, Los Angeles area.
Do you remember sort of what the mission was of the camp, what the goal was with these children?
Just basically just make them have a good time, enjoy the summer. Some of them, there was their first time there, so you kind of wanted to make it the best summer for them as you can.
Were some of these kids socially disadvantaged kids?
Yes, there was a lot of emotionally disturbed kids, a lot of kids that went through a lot as a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So before we would start the session, we would get their reports, and we can see each kid's report and see what they're basically, what they've been through, what have they done, what can they not eat, what can they, can they swim, can they not swim. So basically that's what we kind of knew what their situation was.
As a camp counselor, are you assigned to a specific cabin?
Yes.
Or dorm, I guess?
Yeah, cabin.
And are you the only counselor assigned to the cabin?
There's 2 counselors.
Okay.
And a activities person basically. There's an activities for each, like sports or anything like that. So they kind of actually take over the cabin as well, certain times.
Does the activities person live in the cabin with you and the kids?
No, they're separate. They have their own separate living. Other than us, we're with the kids, 2 counselors.
So 2 counselors 24/7 with your group of how many kids?
I think it ranged from up to 10 kids for 2 counselors, and there was certain times where you had an hour off at the end of the night or 2 hours, and that's when the advisor, the director would come and take over for the kids.
Would you say that for most of that week that they're with you, you are with them?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about getting sort of the reports on the kids at the beginning of the week. Would you and your then kind of co-counselor get together and come up with a plan?
Yeah, you would kind of see what kind of kids you're going to deal with during the week. And you kind of, based on, okay, you can get a kid that might be scared of sleeping at dark or something. You know, we kind of have to kind of think about where we're going to put him. Okay, maybe we can put him on this bed so that he can be in the light or something like that. So we kind of did get together and discuss our cabin kids.
Okay. And I just want to be clear, you were not in the same cabin with James Holmes, is that right? He was in a different cabin.
Yes, he was.
I want you to walk me through a typical day as a camp counselor with your kids.
Well, basically, you just wake up in the morning. You know, there's a certain time we have to be up. Then we get the kids ready, get them brush their teeth, wash their face, do what they have to do. Then we would get them ready, and then we would meet at the circle about, it could be 8 o'clock in the morning before breakfast in cabins. And we sat in cabins and sang songs, and then we had a breakfast, and then after breakfast, we would go back up and have them clean their cabin, do their daily things. And then once after that, we would report to our first activity. We had a schedule that we had to follow, and we report to the first activity.
What kinds of activities would those be?
We had sports, arts and crafts, drama. We had archery, horseback riding, all kinds of dance. So we had all kinds of activities.
Was there like a petting zoo with the animals?
Oh yes, I think there was like a little farm we had, a little petting zoo that we had.
So after the morning activity, then you would go off and do that with your own group of kids and your co-counselor?
Yes.
Then what would happen?
After our activity, we had like 2 activities, and then after that we would have a snack, and then after that we would go to our room, and they would take like an hour break, and then go to lunch. And then we'll go to take more activities. And then after that, they relax again, and you go take dinner. After dinner, you get ready, get ready, have something. If it's cold, get something warm, put some jackets on, sweaters. And then we'll go to our daily activity, which was in the afternoon, where everybody got together.
Okay. Was that after dinner?
Yes.
So there's at least 3 or 4 points actually during the day that all the kids and all the counselors get together, and that would be circle in the morning?
Yes.
Circle, which leads into breakfast?
Yes.
The lunchtime?
Yeah, lunchtime and then dinner.
Dinner, and then the after dinner activity?
Yes. And then in between, there would be times where they would tell us to meet up in the circle, and we would meet up and do songs, a couple songs, and then, head out.
So even though you weren't paired with James Holmes in a cabin, you did have a lot of opportunity to see his interaction, as you did with the other counselors, interaction with all the kids.
Yes.
Now, is there also an orientation that goes along with your job there?
Yes. Every summer, before we start the summer, there's a week-long orientation. We learn about all the rules and all the cans and can-dos and yes, and then certain situations, and that's just counselors and directors and leads and all the people. We just basically just the counselors. We do a lot of activities. We do a lot of activities that we're going to do with them. We do a lot of role playing and see what's going to happen, what would happen in this situation. So it was a week long.
And how many counselors were at the camp and attended that orientation?
I know there was 2 per cabin, and there was, I believe, about 7 or 8 cabins for the males and for the females. So they could have been maybe about more than 40 people.
Okay.
Including, we're talking about from all the cooking, the cleaning people. Everybody was part of that orientation.
Okay. And then who was your supervising counselor? Was that Kevin
It
Wright?
was Kevin.
Okay. I want to, Your Honor, if I may approach, and I'm approaching with, let me stay on the mic, D-TR, these have already been introduced, D-TR-245, 246, 247, 248, and 249.
Yes, you may approach.
And if you can take a look at these photos, Mr. Mendoza. And are those photographs sort of around the camp, of the camp?
Yes.
All right, if we can start with the first one, and can you tell me the number in the bottom corner, because I'm terrible at remembering.
245?
245.
Yes.
What is that a picture of?
This is a picture of the circle where we met up every morning or in between the day to do our songs and announcements, stuff like that. So this is where we met up.
Is that sort of the center of camp?
Yeah, that's like the center where all the cabins are at and all the counselors and everybody there.
I understand the camp was fairly large in acreage, but like all of the land, but the buildings and stuff were all centered in the same spot?
Yeah, except the females' cabins. They're a little bit more towards the field. But it's closed. Everything's close by.
And if you can flip to the next photo, and what number is that one?
246.
And what is that a picture of?
This is a picture of two cabins.
Are those the cabins that you would have been staying in with your kids?
From what it looks like, I'm not really, but yeah, it looks like Seminole.
You were in Seminole cabin?
I was in Seminole cabin.
Okay. And if you can go to 247 and tell us what that's a picture of?
This is Cheyenne.
Was that the cabin that Mr. Holmes was in?
Yes.
Are all the cabins pretty much very similar?
Same too.
Is that 248 now?
48, yeah, it's just a picture of a cabin. Yeah, this is how it looks. It's set up for where the kids sleep.
So the inside of the cabin?
Yeah, inside of the cabin.
Okay. And they have beds and lockers?
Yeah, they have beds and a little shelf where they could put their stuff.
And I'm assuming then you, as the counselors, would also be sleeping on one of those beds?
We had each corner, there was 2 doors in each cabin, and I was in one corner and my co-counselor was in the other corner.
Okay. And what's the next photo there?
249.
And what's that a picture of?
This is, I think, was a little hall, little space where I guess I think we had dance there.
Okay.
That's where we gather at the end and watched some photos and videos, stuff like that.
And then is that back to the beginning?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. You could just leave those there on the table. You said that some of these kids are emotionally disturbed. Can it be frustrating and difficult to work as a camp counselor with these kids 24/7?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I want to now have you sort of describe what you saw about James Holmes, sort of his personality and his demeanor. Overall, how would you say he was? Was he loud and rambunctious, crazy guy, happy, shy?
He was shy.
Yeah.
Wasn't the type that he would go up to you and talk to you or start a conversation. Kind of just a little reserved.
When you would talk to him, would he respond?
Yes, definitely.
Was he polite?
Yes, he was a nice guy.
Okay. Now, with regard to the students or the kids, how did he act with the kids?
He acted normal. I mean, he was. You could tell when he interacted with him, and if it was one-on-one or the whole group, he participated in all the activities.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see him get frustrated or upset with the kids?
Never.
Okay. With regard to activities, I understand there was a point at the end of each week with your groups that you would all come together and you as the counselors would have to get up and say, the positive things about each kid. Yeah,
there was a certain as on Wednesdays, the day before they go back, we all met up at this, on the upper mountain. There was like a little, what do you want to say, like a little fire pit. Mm-hmm. And then every kid would get a pine cone. We would go on top of in front of the circle, and then all the kids would hug with the counselors and kind of just memory of what the whole week was, and then each counselor would have to get up and say something about their week and how was it and what did they enjoy, what they're going to remember. So it was a very tough moment because a lot of the kids were crying, and you just get attached to them. So they just throw the pine cone in the fire, and then we just head back to our cabin, and that's our last night. So.
And James was able to participate in that. I think you said he was kind of shy about it, but he was good.
Yes, he did. It was. It had to be either. It couldn't be always the same counselor. If it's two of us, it couldn't be always the one that was always talking. So we both had to switch off, whether it's weeks. But yeah, everybody did.
Overall, would you say that James participated with his kids in the activities?
Yes.
That he could be smiling with them?
Yes.
That he was caring of them?
Yeah, definitely.
And he did his job well as a camp counselor?
From what I saw, yeah. He was. In order for you to be there the whole 7 weeks, you had to be able to not get frustrated and enjoy it. Be enthusiastic about it. So.
And he was there the whole summer?
Yeah, he was there.
I don't have any other questions for you. Thank you for your time.
Do you have any cross-examination, Mr. Orman?
Oh, Your Honor, thank you. Sir, when's the last time you saw the defendant?
2008.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Is there any redirect?
Your Honor.
May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, sir.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do you have any other witnesses to call at this time, Ms. Brady?
No, sir.
No? Okay. All right, and for the record, my understanding, Ms. Brady, is that you've called these witnesses pursuant to Rule 15 of the Colorado Rules of Criminal Procedure because they may be unavailable to testify in person during your mitigation case. Is that correct?
Yes.
If at any point you decide to call them and provide live testimony because they are available, obviously the court will allow you to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other witnesses that you believe may be unavailable? I know that at one point there were about 6 witnesses that you had asked me to allow to testify via video recorded deposition, and I know that one of them testified. That was the first witness who testified, I think, last week, I believe. Are there any other witnesses that you're asking the court to allow to testify through video recorded testimony pursuant to Rule 15?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. One last thing. When Mrs. Barrett was testifying, there was an exhibit that the defense moved to admit. It was Exhibit D-TR-261 with respect to the July 20, 2012 email exchange. Within that exhibit, in response to the people's hearsay objection, Ms. Brady relied on Rule 803 subsection 1, present sense impression, the present sense impression exception to the hearsay rule. And I didn't rule specifically with respect to that response. People versus Chemerinsky, CZEMERYNSKI, 786 Pacific 2nd, 1100. That's a Colorado Supreme Court case from 1990. That case, I think is the seminal case, if you will, in Colorado on the present sense impression exception. And based on that case, I now sustain the hearsay objection, even with respect to that particular exchange. In Chemerinsky, the court explained that generally an out-of-court statement offered in evidence to prove the truth of the matter asserted is not evidence unless it falls within one of the statutory exceptions to the hearsay rule. Spontaneous or present sense impressions are admissible despite the availability of the declarant under Rule 803 subsection 1, which states that a spontaneous statement describing or exchanging or explaining, an event or condition made while the declarant was perceiving the event or condition is not excluded by the hearsay rule. Rule 803 subsection 1 is more restrictive than the relevant federal rule of evidence 803 subsection 1, which treats as a present sense impression a description made immediately after perception. The federal rule differs in that it does not include the contemporaneous requirement of the Colorado rule. The committee comment to the Colorado rule provides further guidance, and this is a quote in the case based on the committee comment. Colorado case law requires that a present sense impression be instinctive and spontaneous in order to be admissible. Spontaneity is the most important factor governing trustworthiness. This is especially true when there is no provision that the declarant be unavailable as a witness, because the statement, the out-of-court statement, or the out-of-court statements, I should say, in the email exchange on July 20, 2012 were not spontaneous statements. They do not fall within the present sense impression exception to the hearsay rule under Colorado Rule of Evidence 803 subsection 1. So based on Chemerinsky, the hearsay objection is sustained with respect to that specific email exchange. Is there anything else that we can discuss or talk about at this time on behalf of the defense, Ms. Brady?
Your Honor, can I mark D-TR-261 as a court exhibit?
Yes, please. Thank you for reminding me to do that. I think we're up to, what was the last number you used, that we used? 107 is next. So please mark it as C-TR-107. You're welcome.
In addition, we have Exhibit D-TR-262 that we're offering into evidence. I think that it contains a business records affidavit that satisfies 8036 as well as 90111 or 90211 for authenticity. We're asking to admit it without testimony, and I'd like to tender that to the court. I don't know if the people have objection.
Have you shown it to the prosecution?
I previously sent it to them, yeah.
Great. Do the people have any objection? Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, D-TR-262 is admitted. And you may publish it at any point when the jury is here. Just remind me and ask me when you want to publish it, okay? Anything else on D-TR-234 or 236 or not yet?
I have a theory, Your Honor.
Okay.
And my theory is that it's my fault, because I distinctly remember collecting those exhibits from the witness, so I believe they're probably in my witness folder.
Okay.
For which I apologize, and I do not have it present, but I will confirm my theory later this afternoon and bring those back to the court.
That was my theory as well, so I think you're probably right. All right, you can bring him in, Ms. Hicks, on Monday, if you would, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is there anything else on behalf of the defense at this time?
No, Your Honor.
No. Is there anything else on behalf of the people at this time? Is there anything else we can use this time for? I mean, I don't want to just have you here just to have you here. I don't mind having you here, but I don't. If there's work that we can get accomplished, then great. If not, then I'll let you go back to your offices so that you can do work on your own.
You know, the only thing I can think of would be jury instructions, and Ms. Nelson said she's going to get those this afternoon, so we can work on them at the appropriate time. But as much as I like being here, Your Honor, I can't think of a reason to stay.
All right, Ms. Nelson, you're going to work on them and then try to submit them this afternoon. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, great. So it probably makes sense to wait until you do that, right? Yeah, okay. Anything else? No? Great. Okay, I'll see you then on Monday morning at the usual time. I'm going to plan to just have the jurors here at 8:40 at this point. If juror number 378 shows up on Monday and she's still too ill to proceed, then we will adjust and we'll have to figure out how we proceed at that point. But hopefully she'll be well enough to go at that time, okay? All right, everyone, thanks. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday. The court will be in recess.